take vitamins. Oh, and everybody in the video needs to hear that. All right, it is Thursday, February 27th, and if you are not sitting in class, you are jealous. All right. We are going to get into the some new stuff today that has to deal with the annotation scale in the lower right corner that we've been dancing around with for a while. Please make sure you have open first your, don't worry about all these layouts. They are all sort of previews of the layouts I have down here, which we're going to start working on today as well. But have your cottage first floor plan open and your cottage building section open. So we're going to move back and forth between these two drawings. So last week we put in the dimension strings and we put in some text, and we did that by, this is sort of weird, I'm going to go back to that, coming up here to annotation. So annotation is any time you add notes or annotations, notes, dimensions, multiliters to a drawing. You're trying to explain to the contractor what's going on. They, meaning AutoCAD, uses the term annotation for two different things, which I think is confusing. So I'm going to point it out, and hopefully we'll all just try and focus on which one I'm talking about at the time. So annotation is when you're putting in text, dimensions, and multiliters, you are noting the drawing. Annotation is also when we work and we change this little scale down here. This is our annotation scale. And the scale is going to affect how things look in viewports. That'll make sense in about 10 minutes when we get there. What I'd like you to do first is switch to layer A anno note, and that's why when I have these layers that start with anno, it's because they have annotations are going on them. So my current layer is A anno dimensions. That was the last thing I put in this drawing. We're going to switch to A anno notes. And if you are using my template, I'm pretty sure that I gave you a multiliter. So if you go to annotation and click the down arrow, the third one down, this is where we're going to create multiliters. Does everybody, can you see where it says MCTC? Did I give you this one? Okay, good. This, because I have an older drawing, there are a couple other multiliter styles in here, keynotes and stairs. We're going to make those in a couple days, so you will have those as well. But today we're just going to use the one that says MCTC. So make sure that yours, if you click down here, says MCTC and not standard. So it should say MCTC, have the blue little scale triangle, and then we'll be ready. When we're ready to put one in, just like we came up here for dimensions or text, you're going to go, and it's this little arrow with a circle next to it. And we're going to left click on that guy. And all we're going to do over here, if you read your command line, it says specify the leader arrowhead. So the first thing he puts in, this is a 3-click process. The first one, I'm just going to point to the thing I'm talking about. This is my front porch. So I'm going to put in a note about the front porch. So I'm going to actually click on it and drag my hand over here somewhere so that I just put the arrowhead in. You can't see it yet, but you will. Oh, there it is. And then off to the side, do not put in horizontal or vertical multiliters. So make sure your lines are always going at an angle. If you put in exactly horizontal ones, they end up looking like a piece of architecture. So always give yourself a little bit of an angle. So that was my first click. There's my second click. And he automatically puts in this little guy. He's a landing, and now he's waiting for me to type something. So I'm going to type cedar deck, and you should be in all caps. And I'm stain red. And then just click. And you have to click out of the box. If you hit enter, like you are in a Word document, it thinks you're going to keep going. So you'll see that's our first multi-leader. And again, a multi-leader is a note with an electronic leader or arrow attached to it. This is just a note. There's no leader or arrow attached to it. I want you to put a second multi-leader in. I don't know what the shortcut is. I'm going to type ML. It's MLD is the shortcut to put that guy in. Or you can go back up to here again. And now I'm going to point to this window. And if you're not seeing your text, anybody not seeing text, make sure that the annotation scale in the lower right corner is set to 1/4 inch equals a foot. And it can't be 1 to 4. It has to be 1/4 inch. So now I'm going to point to my window. So that's my first click, my second click anywhere I want it. And now I'm going to type 24-inch double hung window with screen. And I'm going to click anywhere out here, and you will notice that I misspelled the word window. So I can just double click on that, and he gets highlighted just like any other Word document. And I can highlight him, right click, and I'll get the correct spelling of window. So you should have no spelling errors in your notes. And now I'm going to put a third note in. So I want you also to be putting these notes in. And I'm going to put one more guy, go over here. I'm going to point to the siding and put a note in that says 6-inch vertical siding, and it looks like I spelled vertical wrong. There we go. So I have 3 notes in. Now's a good time to save. And I'll give you a moment to catch up and get your 3 notes in. Yep.
I'm not seeing the notes.
Okay. Oral, is your annotation scale set to 1/4 inch?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to type. Yada da 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 da.
Yeah, I cannot see what's within the board as well.
Oh, you can't see my writing. Sorry. Okay, so my top one says cedar deck stain red. And at this point, if just do some, you can type some gobbledygook in here, because the next thing I'm going to show you is how to line these guys up. This is messy. And we've talked a little bit about, remember when we were saying I want all your dimensions aligned. One thing I'm going to step aside for a second. One thing that we didn't talk about is how you can modify these guys. Notice how this dimension string runs right through the 9, 2 1/4. When you print this out at black and white, that's going to get in the way. So you can actually just select this guy, and you can left click and move that over. And now, so you can move those dimensions over. And you have the ability to slide things in and out and move them just by selecting the grips, things like that. So these dimensions are modifiable just by selecting them and moving them around. So I'm going to go back. Okay, again, these guys are messy. It doesn't really matter what I say. If you go back up here to the annotation, to the Keynote multi-leader, the little symbol right here, and left click the down arrow next to it, you will see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. When you insert one, it's the first option. Then you can add a leader, remove a leader, align, or collect. We're going to click align, which is going to line up my 3 very messy notes. And so I clicked align, and you'll see that the symbol changes up here. And my command line says select the multi-leaders. These are the ones I want to line up. I want all 3 of these guys to line up. So I can either select them 1, 2, 3, or I can just put a box around all of them. Hit enter. Then it says select the multi-leader to align to. I'm going to pick the good one, the one I like the best. I like this one the best. So I'm going to select him, and notice how you all of a sudden get a vertical line, and you just kind of move your hand around till you get a green vertical line, and now you'll see all three of these guys have lined up. And then I also don't like this guy's hanging out the side, so I'm going to double click him and move the slider on the ruler, and now I get 3 lines there, 3 lines of text, and 3 lines of text there, and the sameys there. Okay, so I went up here to the down arrow, up here right where I put, when I first picked, yep, the second to the bottom one is a line. I can also, so right here, these are both decks or porches that should be stained. So instead of taking this note and copying it and moving it over here, I can just add a leader if I want. I can go up here, left click to the down arrow, add a leader, and then it says select a multi-leader. This is the one I'm going to select. This is the original. And now I can add a leader, and it points to that one. And actually there's another deck over here. I'll add that one. And then I just am having a good time, so I'll just put a bunch of stuff all over the place. And I hit enter. Now that's ridiculous. So I can actually go back here. You'll see the little green for add a leader. I can remove a leader. I'm going to select the multi-leader that I want to remove the leader from. And now he says, pick the leaders you want to remove. I'm going to get rid of that one, that one, that one. All these kind of weird ones. I think I can use a crossing window. That doesn't even go to a porch. And this one cuts across my plan, so I don't like it either. So I'm going to get rid of all of those. And now I've cleaned them up. And now I don't like how this leader cuts across my porch, so I can actually take this one, select it, grab his upper left corner, and slide him up, and that makes me happier. All right, I'm going to save. And now I'm going to get into the meat of what we're really talking about today. And Taylor, will you hand out these handouts? I'm going to switch to my building section. I'll give you a minute to switch to your building section. And we're going to be putting in some multi-leaders and dimensions in here. As a note, if you go to D2L, I have, yesterday I put 2 other things in handouts. So I'm in the handout section of D2L, the very bottom. This is the cottage building section colored screenshot. So this is a screenshot of what I have on my screen today. So when you're trying to figure out what goes on what layer, you can go open this up. And this bottom one, cottage building section Anno lesson 11 by 17, is the piece of paper that Taylor just handed you. So you have access to these 2 guys as well. For those of you at home, this is what Taylor just handed out. Okay. Notice that I have 2 multi-leaders that I just put in. So why don't you go put these 2 multi-leaders in? You're going to go do the same thing that you just did. You're going to go up here to multi-leader and make sure that you're on layer A Anno Note and put in one that points to that footing and one that points to the concrete slab. And then I want you to line them up vertically so they look nice and pretty. And I'll give you a minute to do that. And I'm going to pause. Okay, so for those of you who are watching the video, something I said while the video was not running is go ahead and put this dimension string in. I'm going to delete mine for a second. So I'm going to switch to my A Anno Dims, select this dimension string, and the dimension string is going from the top of the slab to the top of the kitchen floor. I'm going to drag my hand out. You guys don't have that dimension in or that dimension in yet. It doesn't matter. So just pick a spot that's about here-ish. I'm going to line up with that. You should get 7, 11.5. You will notice that my dimension string, I'm going to hover over it, has, these are the extension lines. This is the string, these are the extension lines. There's a little gap in there, he's perfect. This guy goes all the way over to the kitchen floor. I actually don't want that line to go all the way across there. I want to keep this gap open, so I can just select this blue grip, left click, and slide it over, and there. That's infinitely adjustable. Later on, we're going to put the stairs in here, so that's why I want to keep this open. So again, it should be, if you've done everything correctly, it should be 7, 11.5. You should be right in alignment with the top of this little piece of rectangle right there. That's where that guy goes, right there. Okay. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and move to the right side of my drawing, and you will see that I've got all this kind of weird little yellow stuff over here. These are notes. These are multi-liter notes that you can't really read, but look how much smaller they are than these notes over here. And that is because they got put in at a different annotation scale. I'm going to switch down here. Right now yours says layout 1. I'm going to switch for a second. This is the layout of the handout that Taylor just gave you. And I have 3 viewports in it, and you will see that I have 1 viewport of my entire building section. It has those 2 notes in it and this dimension string that we just put in. If you look over on this corner, there's no text. If you look, this detail right here is this little corner right there. And all of this text is there. So it's showing up in this viewport, but not in this viewport. And this is how we put details together on architectural sheets. This viewport is set to, I'm going to show you how to do all of this stuff in a second. This viewport is set to a quarter inch, and that's the annotation scale that all these guys went in at. This viewport is set to 1 inch, and that's the annotation scale that these notes went in at. So we're going to create this piece of paper in a second. I'm going to go back to my model space. That's what you're looking at here. If you're not following the concept, don't worry. We're going to walk through this whole thing, and you will get a light bulb by the end of class, hopefully. So what I want you to do now is go over here and zoom in on this corner, and I want you to change your annotation scale from quarter inch to, what did I say, 1 inch? Properties. I'm pretty sure I said 1 inch. 1 inch, yes. So go down here and switch from quarter inch to 1 inch. It's further down. And I want you to put these 4 notes in. While you're there, I want you to change these items that we have drawn from the green layer, which I think is medium, A section medium, to A section fine. Because these are smaller things and the lines are closer together, they are going to, we use a lighter line weight so our drawing doesn't get kind of gummed up with a lot of plotter ink. So go ahead and put these notes in and switch the sill plate, the rim board, and the subfloor and this bottom plate all to A section fine. And I'll give you a minute to do that. And I will pause. All right, this is the drawing that if you glance over at this drawing that Taylor handed out to you, you will see that there are building section, this is the eave or overhang detail, and this is the rim joist detail. So there are 3 views on this layout. The sheet of paper is called the layout. Only 2 of those views have rectangles around them. There are actually 3 viewports, which is like a window into the world, into the display. But most architects, I don't want you to see the viewports, so we actually put them on a layer that does not plot. I left these 2 so you could see that they're there, and this one I turned off. So the next thing we're going to do is create this setup. So I'm going to go back to my drawing, and I'm going to zoom out. And when you zoom out, you should also have dimensions and notes that are 2 different sizes. You should have little itty bitty things and big things. Does anybody, if your annotation scale is set to 1 inch, anybody not see the notes they just put in? Did they disappear? Okay, there is a little scale down here at the bottom, and this one, if I hover over, it's right next to your object snap. It's a little scale with a circle next to it. He says show annotation objects always. He will show when you have 2 objects of 2 different scales, which we do. These are at 1/4 inch and these are at 1 inch. They're all going to show up on your drawing. Sometimes that bugs people when you're drawing and it gets in the way. So if you don't want to see them, if you click this and turn that off, it's only going to show the objects in the scale you're working at right now. We did not delete these. They're just not visible anymore. So when you move back and forth between scales, which you're going to start to today, don't panic if you think stuff disappeared. Okay, you just come down here, turn this guy on, and now you can see all those. All right, move down to the lower left corner of your screen where for you guys it says, I think layout, it says model, layout 1 and layout 2. I've already renamed one of mine, and so I'm going to get another layout. So I'm going to click on this plus sign, and I have another layout 1. Click on layout 1, and you will get this lovely piece of paper. This piece of paper is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. We rarely print anything on 8.5 by 11 because it's so small that you can't get anything on there. I sent 2 details to a client last night that I printed on 8.5 by 11 because I know they only have an 8.5 by 11 printer at their house. But most architects, we don't use this piece of paper very often, so we're going to change the size. So if you come here to layout number 1, and it should be sort of bolded, and you right click on it, put your cursor right on it, right click, and you're going to go almost halfway up to Page Setup Manager and left click on Page Setup Manager, and you will get a dialog box that says Page Setup Manager, and layout 1 will be highlighted. Down here it tells you that that is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in the landscape direction, meaning it's horizontal. We're going to change that, so we're going to go over here to modify. So left click on modify, and you will get this dialog box. And this dialog box looks almost exactly like the plotting dialog box we're going to get when we get ready to print. We're not going to play with everything on this screen, just a couple things, but the first thing you have to change is the printer plotter, because all the paper sizes are tied to whether you use that printer over by the windows or the big plotters over here by the microwave. We're going to use the print server by the windows, which is print serve Minneapolis black and white. So that's the guy that we want. If it doesn't say that, if you left click, there's lots of other options in here. So don't get all excited. You're going to go to, where did I get lost? Print serve black and white. Now I'm going to go down here to paper size, and I'm going to switch 8.5 by 11. So click the down arrow and switch it to 11 by 17. And you'll see that this little preview changed also from 8.5 by 11 to 11 by 17. We're going to plot a layout so we don't have to switch that. Come up to the upper right corner where it says plot style table, and it says none. I want you to left click on the down arrow and switch it to monochrome. Monochrome means one color, black and white. So this is, we're going to, at this point, we are not printing in color yet. So you want to make sure this says monochrome. Left click on it. And he will automatically, I lied. What did I just say we were going to do? Yeah, no, landscape. We want landscape because 11 by 17 defaults to landscape. And then the last thing we're going to do is come to in the very middle at the bottom, click on Scale Line Weights. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes explaining that. This is a trust me for now. We'll talk about it later, but just click on that guy. So we picked the plotter we wanted or the printer. We changed our paper size. We changed it to monochrome, made sure it said landscape, and then scale line weights. And now we say OK. Left click on OK, and you'll notice under plot size it has already switched to 11 by 17, and we can close this out. And the piece of paper just looks like a different size now. Okay, how many people have a colored rectangle on their piece of paper? Nobody? Do you guys all have a blank piece of paper? Okay, if you have something on your piece of paper, you are going to select it. AutoCAD gave you a viewport. We're going to get rid of that viewport. So go ahead and select it. So left click on it and delete it. And now everybody should have sort of a blank piece of paper, 11 by 17. Go up to Layer Properties. So left click on Layer Properties and create a new layer called Viewports. I've already got mine. So you're going to come up here to the little piece of paper with the sunshine. And you're going to create this layer, Viewports. And it's going to be magenta. And it's going to be continuous, and it's going to be default, so you don't even need to change the line thickness. These guys don't really matter because we're never going to print the viewport. That rectangle, that box is not going to print. So whatever we put in here doesn't really matter because you're never going to see it. The one special thing is here, 5th column down, 4th column down, these are little itty bitty printers. Left click on the printer and you should get a little red circle in the corner. That's that Ghostbuster symbol, the circle with the slash through it, and that means it's not going to plot. So go ahead and click on that so your viewport layer does not plot. And now you can close out. Now I want you to, we're going to put that viewport back. I'm going to switch to Layer Viewport. Make it current. Okay, a viewport is not just a rectangle. It is a magic box. And so we have to put it, we can't just say rectangle. Don't go up to your rectangle and just put a rectangle in here. That's not a viewport. I'll show you. I can just put a goofy little rectangle in there. Nothing happens. There's no image in here. What I want to do is put a viewport in here, and the shortcut for putting a viewport in is MV for Make View. So type MV and hit Enter. And you get asked to specify the corner of the viewport. And I'm going to make yourself a viewport that's about half the size of your sheet of paper. And now you should see your drawings showing up inside that viewport. If you don't see your drawings showing up inside, if your viewport looks like this, and you don't see anything, you are going to double click inside it, 2 clicks inside it, Z for zoom, enter, E for extents, enter, and there's all your stuff. Okay, so Z, enter, E, enter. E as in Edward. Z, enter, E, enter. And now your stuff should show up. Do you see it? I'm going to get rid of this second little rectangle because he's meaningless. All right. You might have noticed, Reese, are you up to, you got what we got? Okay, click inside one of them. 2 clicks. Okay, so are these viewports or did you just draw rectangles? No. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one. I think they're just rectangles. Type MV for Make View. Enter. Now, yep, and now go to 2 corners to make your viewport. No, right there. Just click. Left click. Okay. Just do it. There you go. There you go. Okay. These are not rectangles. They come when you type MV. Okay, I'm going to move mine, and you can change the size of these. You can slide them around. You can do anything you want with them, like there. And I want my building section to show up in there. So again, but you'll notice that the viewport gets a really dark line around it when you are inside it. Okay, give yourself 2 more viewports, one here and one there. If you are inside your viewport and you can't get out of it, meaning the dark line won't go away, you have to double click in the gray area, and it can't be too fast and it can't be too slow. This is sort of a weird thing with viewports. So it's 2 clicks, sort of 2 calm but slightly energetic clicks to get out. In, out. 2 clicks in, 2 clicks out. I'm going to make 2 more viewports, MV, and I'm going to put them over here, and another one. And now I'm going to make this guy big, so it's this about how I'm going to lay out my sheet. I now have 3 windows into my drawing. I'm going to go back to my handout. This building section, we want to set the viewport to a 1/4 inch scale so it shows up exactly at a 1/4 inch. And these 2 details we're going to set to 1 inch. And so we're going to zoom in to these 2 parts of the drawing. And this, we do this as architects all the time. We're going to zoom into this part and this part. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD, this one. And the way I set the side, the easiest way to do this is double click, so you're inside the viewport, and sort of hold down your scroll wheel, pan your object right into the middle. You can sort of roll it in and out. As you're rolling it in and out to zoom, look down here next to my counter, and you will see a weird decimal. That means this is at no particular scale, but I want it to be exactly 1/4 inch, so I'm going to get it right about there. I'm going to go down here to and click on the lower, on this down arrow, left click, and set that guy to 1/4 inch. And he will zoom perfectly to 1/4 inch, and then all my notes show up all of a sudden. I'm going to double click outside my viewport to get out of it, because it's really easy to accidentally screw this, move this out of, see, now I just did it again. It's out of, if you sort of watch while you're scrolling, keep an eye on this number down here, it moves. So I want to put this guy right back in the middle, go back down here, left click on the down arrow, and set this to 1/4 inch equals a foot. Perfect. I want you to go over to these other 2 viewports, go to the top one, double click inside it, move your section to the middle, and zoom in around the overhang. You don't have it, we didn't put any notes in it yet. I did, you didn't. But put the overhang in the middle, sort of like that. Come down here and set this guy to 1 inch equals a foot. 2 clicks outside, 2 clicks inside the bottom viewport. Zoom in to the rim joist. Come back down here and set that guy to 1 inch. I want, because these are actually 2 parts of the same wall, I want them to line up. So I'm going to move back and forth. I'm going to move my overhang up like that. And then I'm going to double click inside here. I'm going to pan over there. Notice how my notes line up and my walls line up. I still have that note's not coming down there. So I'm going to go back to my model space. I'm going to zoom in on this one, and I want you to add these 4 notes to this drawing. I know that we have not added these little pieces yet, but just put the notes in, and then we'll come back and add the pieces to it. I just want to make sure that you can get these guys in all at 1 inch equals a foot and get them to show up in your viewport. So I'm going to save. I'm going to pause and I'm going to walk around and just make sure everybody is up to speed. Really good question on if you are trying to point to something. So I'm going to move this guy out of the way. Actually, I'll put him back. When you want to put your arrowhead in and AutoCAD auto snaps to either a corner or the midpoint and you don't want it there, so that, and I'm going to move this. So I'm going to put a multi-leader in, but I want it to be, I don't want it there. I don't want it there. If you want it right there, you can't, the shortcut to get your arrowhead to go right there is NEA for nearest. NEA space bar, and then he will snap. You'll get this sort of an X, and he'll go anywhere you want. Does that work, Blake? Yeah, I use that all the time. So now I'm going to put this guy back. Same thing, if I want him up there and he won't, I want him in that point, type NEA space bar, and I can get him to go to that point. I'm just going to, for those people watching the video, we'll go over this again in class on Tuesday, but once you get these top notes in at the overhang, you can go ahead and add these additional lines. What are they? You've just written the note in. So this is 3/4 inch sheathing. You have the green line, so just offset it in 3/4 of an inch. So now you've got the thickness of the sheathing. You've got all these green lines in. This is the fascia, that's the board on the outside that you hang your gutters on. So it's 1 inch, you just offset it there. And this is your soffit trim. That's where you're going to put your little soffit vents in. It's 1 inch. So just offset it up and kind of trim and clean up these corners. Put them on layer A detail fine so they show up a little bit lighter. And then you can go in. These little X's we put in framing to show the contractor that they're continuous. They go all the way around the house. So that's what this little X means. Instead of, we've got this, it's the same piece of lumber that we have here. I just have not gone back and added the X's. So when you come over to your viewports, you will see the X's there. Oh, they're on there as well. I can actually turn the X's on in this viewport and off in this viewport if I want, and we'll play with that later. Again, if you need a reminder as to what these guys look like when they're done, you can go to D2L. Where's my D2L? And handouts. And this is a screenshot of what your section should look like. So, bless you. Your 3 viewports on your layout should all be pink. I left my 2 on layer 0 so you could see them. If I want to switch them all to the viewport layer, so if it's on layer viewport so they don't plot, I'm going to type MA for match properties, select, and paint. What? That, oh, look what happened. Okay, he actually changed the scale. Not only did he change the viewport layer, he changed the scale of my viewport to match that one. So I have to go back and line this guy back up. Yeah, so don't just do match properties. And I will switch him to 1 inch. And I'm going to zoom in on this one a little bit. Notice you cannot see my notes here down here yet because it's not set to 1 inch. The minute I switch to 1 inch, those notes will show up. And now I'll just adjust things so it looks neat and tidy.
How come 2 of mine don't have grid lines, but 1 of them does?
All right, I'm going to save and stop, and I'll come see what you're talking about.